What is up, guys? Fire here. And today I wanted to talk about how to actually create profitable games or the steps to take in order to create games overall and to create profitable games. Now, the reason for this is because when I talk about creating games and when I get questions from students in creating games, they are right away, I want to create a game like Call of Duty, or I want to create a game like Grand Theft Auto, or want to create. No, you cannot do that because, I'm like, people are telling me, I want to create an RPG game. I'm like, no. I want to create a mobile game. No. I'm going to create first person shooter game like Call of Duty. No, because the reality is we cannot do that. I mean, if you're an indie developer like I am, you work solo, especially if you work solo, even if you have a small team, creating games with that large scope is not that possible because those games have budgets like not that possible because those games have budgets like millions of dollars, and they have hundreds if not thousands of people working on them. So how are we, how am I, how are you going to create those games on your own? So that is not possible, and we should focus on creating games that are more inside of our scope. And we have a lot of examples how simple and small games, basically games that we're creating in 10 days, 20 days, in 1 month, are made it to the top of the charts, and they crushed it, and people loved it. So don't think of a game, or that you need to create a game that's like out of this league in order for that game to succeed. No, you just create a simple game that you love. I usually concentrate on 2D games because they're much more simple, and there are a lot of examples of how many these 2D games are out there that you can just create, and they're just cool and don't take a lot of time, and so on and so forth. So how can you actually, or how can we, now I want to look at the screen and I want to look at the camera anyways. I'll also take a little bit of questions later on. So what are those steps for us, for me, for you to take in order to create a game? So in step one is creating your game mechanics, because this is the easiest way that you can think of it. Creating the game mechanics. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have a game where you have characters, where you have enemies, where you have, all sorts of things happening, like, as I said, so for example, the character, you will just take and create a character, make him playable, make him move around, make him jump, make him, these are the mechanics of your game. So get the character ready. After that, get his enemies ready. So create his enemies, make them ready, program their AI to fight the character. Of course, you're going to do testing during that time. So you're going to do testing if that works, if you have bugs, so on and so forth. Add collectibles, create your levels. This is what you're going to do in step one, which is, creating your game mechanics. Again, I'm repeating. So add collectibles, make sure they interact with the player, make sure that when he picks them up, these collectibles will react to that. You will increase score. Don't think about anything other than that. So creating your game mechanics, this is step one. So create also levels, add levels, make sure that your levels work, if you're counting score in the levels, and make sure that all of that works. As I said, test everything throughout that process. So this is step number one. So what is step number two? Well, step number two is put everything together. So now that you have the mechanics, you have the player who is working, he can move and so on and so forth, he can attack, he can jump. You have enemies that do the same thing. So they can attack the player, they can jump, you are dealing damage between them. This is a step-by-step process. So you have collectible items that you can pick up. You also have enemies that will leave collectible items after they die. You have animations, everything is prepared. So you just now need to put everything together. So you have your levels prepared. So put them under level 1, 2, 3, 4, and load the appropriate level based on which level you're going to. And put the enemies in the level, put the character in the level, put everything in the collectibles, make the level talk with your characters, like in terms of when will the level be finished. For example, if your character kills a certain number of enemies, then the level will be finished. Or if your character reaches the end of the goal line, then he will basically end the level. So this is how you connect things. Make sure that everything works. Put the enemy in the level, put the player in the level, and make sure that they can interact with each other, they can attack, which is, you also did that in step one. You made sure, but now you are putting that together in a level, combining everything together and making everything work. Of course, you will also create your main menus, you will create your UI. I talked about collectible items. Now, this is just an example. I'm using an example this for a game. Now, this can be any game that you create. So you will add collectible items and you'll make them count. And you will add, if you have like bonuses for the player, power ups, so on and so forth. You have multiple characters, you will have a character select screen. So you will touch that select screen and then you will go and play the game with the selected character. Now, one important thing to take into consideration or to do when you're putting things together is to use the singleton pattern, which is, you will create game managers. And I talk a lot about this and I do this a lot in my tutorial. So you will create a game manager, which is, a game object that is like a glue that puts everything together. It holds everything. Like, he is the base, he's the bridge for communicating with the main menu, for communicating with your gameplay, for communicating with your score, with your save data. So you will need those game managers or implementing the singleton pattern in order to make all of that happen. So this is this was step number 2. So we have step number 1, step number 2, and what is step number 3? Now we monetize our games. So now you can put monetization in your games depending on which platform you created the game for. If you created a game for Steam, you can just put the price on it. If you created an app, or a mobile game for iOS or Android, you will put monetization like video ads. You will put banner ads, interstitial ads. So this is what you will do in the 3rd step. A lot of developers, especially beginners, they just want to dive in and they want to create, large games, as I already talked about in the beginning. They just want to create large and huge games right off the bat, and they just give up. After some time, they just give up. They realize, after a week, that they are not capable of creating a first-person shooter like Call of Duty or whatever, and they just give up. So these are the 3 simple steps that you need to take into consideration to create a game and to monetize your game. Don't try to overwhelm yourself. Don't try to do something out of your scope. When you are, no, I did not learn Photoshop for creating assets. I have my own designer who is creating those assets for you, and yeah, basically that is that. As I said, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try to go above your possibilities. So when you are thinking about a game that you're going to create, just think of something that you're actually capable of creating and something that you can, bring to the end. Don't try to create something and, like after a week or 2, you will just quit. So yeah, I've seen a lot of these examples. A lot of people, they tell me, I start a game that I quit. That is because you set a high goal. You and I, again, we cannot create Grand Theft Auto. We cannot create Call of Duty, but we can create smaller indie games. And don't think that game development, when it comes, because people think that is a long process. I mean, it is. When you create a game, it's not like something that you can do in a day, but it is something that you can do in a week. It is something that you can do in a month. Don't think of it like, oh, I'm creating a game, it will take a year. It does not have to take a year. You can create a nice and playable game in a month. And we had examples, and I will showcase how I can bring those games. I mean, I can show them showcasing here and talking about those games who, were made like, in a month and did very well in the app stores and on Steam, that is. So basically, this is what I wanted to talk about, the 3 simple steps, how you can create and monetize your games. Also mentioning that you don't, yeah, of course, creating a small game, so don't overwhelm yourself. And also mentioning this thing, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try to, create something large that you are not capable of making. Basically, that is that. Before I go, how to generate gaming ideas. I will talk about that in another video because, I did not plan that to talk about on this video, because now I am coming to an end of this live stream. I'm just going to promote the course that I just opened before it closes, because Friday night it will close 11 p.m. I will put that in the link here in the description below. I'll also put it in the chat and in the description below, and just talk about for a moment about that. That is a 7 weeks coaching program, or actually teaching program, where we will go every week through a module, every week one module, every week now second module, so on and so forth. We will be in a Facebook group together. We will collaborate on projects together. We will be all at the same page. Week one, we're doing one module, and we all are there for that one module. So it will be better and easier for us to learn like that. And not only that, I'm going to post a lot of useful resources to support the module, our exercises, so on and so forth. You can check it out. Link is in the description below if you're watching this after live, or in the chat if you're watching now. Basically, that is that. One thing that I will mention, if you're interested in this, I will not reopen enrollment probably until next year, so January or February. So yeah, this was just as a note. Anyways, Fahir here from awesometuts.com. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video, and I will see you guys in the next one.